Welcome, everyone. It's nice to see everyone online and on video. My name is Kathy Matuziak-Costa, and I'm the Director of Compassionate Community Care. And I'll lead us with a quick introduction starting off. We will have more people entering into the chat, so feel free to join us, and you can ask or post questions in the chat box. But by all means, we'd love to hear from you even after the seminar. So once Mary has spoken and shared, we will take questions as well from you directly. So if you'd like to, by all means, hold your questions until the end of the session today, and we will address those as well, okay? And thank you all for joining us. I wanted to, can you see my screen all right? Yeah, perfect. Okay, great. So today's seminar is called Elder Abuse, A Closer Look, and we're very excited, very happy and eager to hear from Mary. Mary Shkoury is a prevention consultant with and from Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, which is a provincial agency. And today she will be sharing with you some wonderful information, important information, and it's vital for those who you love or care for, especially in those you're connected to in the community, to prevent elder abuse. And what constitutes elder abuse? How do we recognize the risk factors and signs of abuse? How do we report it, and how best to support older adults experiencing or who are at risk of elder abuse? So once we begin, I'm just going to quickly jump over and just let you know a little bit about our agency and a little bit about our work. At Compassionate Community Care, we are a registered charity as well. We're comprised of healthcare professionals and volunteers who provide support to vulnerable persons and their families during times of illness and crisis. And most importantly, we believe that all human life has equal dignity and value. So we do respect every human person. We believe that every person deserves to be treated with respect and compassion while receiving the care they deserve. And whether you are facing a chronic condition, disability, or end-of-life situation, we're here to help. So we offer a support in a variety of ways. One way is that we offer solutions to support you through our helpline. We can help you find answers to the questions about end-of-life concerns, treatment issues and options, finding the educational and support resources you deserve. And so one of the things we often find is that people call our helpline and they will have questions regarding all facets. And today's presentation is the third installment of a series that we've done on elder abuse prevention. And so Mary will be sharing with you a number of various resources, especially with her agency and elder abuse prevention. And so with our group, we find that it's very helpful to have a helpline, and it's a crisis line. Oftentimes we get calls all through the various hours of the day, and I'm sure, Mary, you understand this. Our helpline phone number is listed here on the screen. It's 1-855-675-8749. And when I say it's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, that's exactly what it is. We get calls all through all different various times. But if it's a non-critical matter, an issue, then by all means, please feel free to reach us at our office line as well, which is a non-helpline contact information also listed on the screen. And so what do we do through that? We often find that we can offer a variety of supports. It can be advice. It could be based on helping directly. For example, we have calls related to mental health cases and people who are seeking mental health support. And so what we'll find is that often people will contact us. They'll have questions about advocacy. What, as patients, are they entitled to? What are their rights as residents in certain homes and residence, facilities? We often will refer to and recommend conflict resolution strategies. And of course, we have training and resources. So there's a wide array of ways that you can be assisted in that way. And our trainings, which I will mention as well throughout our presentation at the end, are provided regularly. So we do offer free comprehensive training for people if you want to be supportive members in your community and volunteer, and you could be visitors, then that's a wonderful way to help and also alleviate a lot of these problems we see and we're going to hear about today. So building a compassionate community is one of our goals, and that means to create chapters. And we love to set up hubs where people can actually facilitate helping people. We'll get calls all across Canada, even in the US sometimes, occasionally, where people are looking for a support person or someone who can be an advocate for them, or at least be able to express their wishes to and be able to facilitate a dialogue. So feel free to contact us if you're interested in volunteering or being a volunteer. And what we found was over the course of COVID, especially, this has become a very important and very increasing issue, is the issue of loneliness. And I see a lot of people shaking their heads, especially our speaker. So I appreciate that she understands this just as we do. Over COVID, people experience a very difficult time and period in their lives. Many people felt lonely, isolated. Maybe they were socially also cut off from many people. And so what we did was we partook in a study and a survey of over 500 Canadians. Yes, and in this survey, we found some interesting feedback information. These are some of them that were given to us, and these are they captured the essence of what ultimately was a summary of the results, which was that people who stayed positive, they were active, and they were around other people, they actually found they were more overwhelmingly improved, their lifestyle improved. So they didn't feel cut off. They didn't feel that epic of loneliness, that epidemic of it. And so what they found was that we need to focus on loneliness. This is a huge growing issue for elders and people in all across different ages, but especially in our senior community. And sometimes, for example, people wanted to facilitate different groups or hospitality groups, or at least some type of contact. And people were looking and seeking that out, and they didn't find it necessarily with COVID, during COVID. So this was really important feedback that we found, that we need to create more support systems for seniors. And one thing is that when people are spoken to, they need to be in contact with one another. This is how we can help. And this is where all of you come in, and your context as well. So for example, someone mentioned visiting shut-ins. Younger people should be visiting older individuals. There should be this kind of involvement across ages. And also we should support seniors who don't have, either family nearby or friends that they can call on. And so we published these results, and these were really fantastic, and they're pivotal, because the study is ultimately called Honoring Our Seniors, and how this was impacted. And so we have this. We have a wonderful publication we just released. This is available online. It's free of charge. We can actually ship you copies as well if you'd like to review it. And ultimately, it shows and shares firsthand how people are impacted and how their feedback was registered in terms of the survey and their experience during COVID. And just some overall ideas that came back from this was that there was seniors who continued on with their daily life, often found that they were very positive. They acted no different. They carried on as normal, and they remained socially connected and with others in the community. And they felt that COVID was bearable. They actually went through it and really found that it was not as draining or difficult or isolating as some others did. There was another group that we found that really experienced loneliness. And these were people who had questions about end of life, who wanted support, who found there were no resources really made available. And those common experiences were feelings of loneliness, isolation, frustration, and depression. There was a large amount of people who experienced or shared that they had depression during COVID. And those common experiences were those who felt isolated, who were cut away from family, or felt that they were maybe removed from certain people, and they were socially withdrawn or abandoned by others. And they found that was as a result of that. The final group, and a third smaller category, which was a very prominent group as well, who spoke and said that they managed through with a single person, a friend, maybe a pet even, or their faith or their belief system. So this was very interesting, because even just one person made a huge difference. So this is why I stress this. By connecting with seniors, by connecting with people in your community, you could be that one person. That makes all the difference. And this is post-COVID now, so we have that opportunity. And, they found maybe they experienced some occasional loneliness. Some seniors managed by having a single person to check in, like a spouse. Some people found their spouse actually passed away during COVID, which was quite devastating. But they expressed that made such a big difference, that they had someone they could help and provide care for. And then for some people, it was simply their pet, or their, a single individual in their community, or a faith that helped them bear through it. And so overall, we've been seeing this trend that many seniors have found the last few years very, very isolating. Some feel that they were cut off from their faith centers or community places or loved ones or friends. And those who said they were able to deal remained, they did not experience necessarily those same feelings of depression. So those ones who were in contact with people regularly. And so that was an important correlation that we found, that it's very important to keep in touch with one another and check in on each other. One way, and this is very important, I found one woman expressed this, that in her community, they have a seniors community development wherein if a person's shades or blinds are pulled down in the mornings and they're not opened, then they know something's wrong. So then someone will come by, knock on the door, and check in on them. So it's just something very simple and practical, but it's very effective and actually made a difference. And as a community, we know we can be better, we can do better, right? And we need to, definitely. So for a full summary, if you'd like a copy of this report, it's online. We have a 5-page short one and also a detailed full report, which is around 75 pages. And that's as well on our website, okay? But without ado, I'm so happy and excited to share with you our actual speaker today, which is Mary Shkoury. She is a prevention consultant with, as I mentioned, Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, and she has a long history and interest in this type of work. She has been working in health, wellness, and the sectors for prevention of elder abuse for the last 20 years with a focus on senior health and safety. She graduated from York University with a specialized Bachelor of Honor, BA in sociology, and completed her studies in gerontology within aging and health through Queen's University. Her passion and commitment for caring for seniors, especially in Canada, rights have led her to the role with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, where her mission is to see our province continue to be a safe place for seniors to live, be heard, and be free from elder abuse. Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario is a provincial charitable nonprofit organization focused on supporting the implementation of the Ontario strategy to combat elder abuse, and that has been they have been doing so since 2002. And the framework for that strategy focuses on service coordination, building local capacity of frontline workers, caregivers, and community networks by providing public education and training of professionals, service providers, and families of seniors to raise awareness around elder abuse issues. So without ado, I want to give a warm welcome to Mary Shkoury, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And thank you for that lovely introduction. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone, based on where you are joining us today. I am just going to get my screen up for everyone to see so we can begin. And, sorry, just give me one quick second here. I want to see that I can get that from our first slide and just make sure that's visible for everybody. Looks good. Wonderful. Excellent. Thank you so much. So thank you again for that lovely introduction. As Kathy had said, my name is Mary Shkoury with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, and I'm honored today to take you through the next 45 minutes to an hour on a closer look at understanding the work we do with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario. And before we sort of dive in, a very important day I would like to bring to everyone's attention. Many of you may already be aware of June 15th. Every year around the world, we mark and acknowledge World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. This is an event that was started and was spearheaded by a Canadian, which gives us so much pride. Dr. Elizabeth Podniaks brought this to the United Nations and advocated as we mark every June 15th World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. And for those of you here in Ontario, Canada, happy June, happy Seniors Month. So of course, this really correlates with Seniors Month for us here in Ontario. For many provinces in Canada that mark Seniors Month in June, but around the world, the 15th is marked as World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. For those of you who are in the Toronto area or will be watching the news that evening, the CN Tower will be lit up in purple because, of course, purple is the color to mark elder abuse awareness. Niagara Falls will be lit up. And we have been hearing from the Prime Minister's office that Prime Minister Trudeau will be making an acknowledgement, a proclamation on June 15th around Canada's continued strategy to combat elder abuse. For those of you in Ontario, our Premier Doug Ford as well will be making a statement and proclamation on this day. So it's, of course, the day for us is every day is World Elder Abuse Awareness Day and prevention with the work we do. But on this day around the world, we do mark it. Now, if you're able to, feel free to come join us at 1 p.m. That will be Toronto Eastern Standard Time. We will be hosting a webinar a free webinar. You can register online at our website, which is www.eapon.ca, and the information will be there to register that day. It'll be recorded, so if you're unable to join us on the 15th, you can always join our website anytime. Look for the webinars that are archived to view that. We have an array of speakers, and it'll be as well hosted by Bob Ray, our former premier, who will also be speaking a lot about the work he's doing with the United Nations on behalf of the Canadian delegation Rights on Ageism. So, sorry, that was a big introduction and mouthful for World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, but such great information, and a day, of course, to mark and acknowledge this around the world. 1 p.m. will be the EAPO webinar hosted that I hope you're able to join us for. So as we begin, again, we'd always like to acknowledge the amazing work that we continue to work with by the Government of Ontario, that Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario is funded under for the Ministry for Seniors and Accessibility. And as Kathy had mentioned, of course, our mission is every day to implement Ontario's strategy to combat elder abuse. We envision an Ontario where all our seniors are free from abuse, have a strong voice, and feel respected and safe every day. And I always say, yes, this is my career, this is my job, this is my passion. But I too have a mom who is a senior living in the province of Ontario. So this work is not only taken as a career with dedication and passion, but it's personal. Because as my mom is aging, as we are all aging every day, we understand why it is so important to continue raising awareness and prevention strategies to ensure our Ontario seniors are living safely. We are always honored and dedicated to bring public education and awareness in a variety of forums across the province. We train frontline staff, from policing partners, hospital staff. We work with pharmacists, we work with occupational physiotherapists, social workers. Really, we say any staff who are working directly with seniors, our goal is to enhance their knowledge and their skills, not only to recognize elder abuse, but how best to respond. And of course, our work is done by strengthening our partnerships across community services in local communities, provincially, federally, and of course, globally, because working together is the way forward to share our efforts to combat elder abuse. So today's discussion framework will take us through understanding and looking at some of the types and signs of elder abuse. I want to touch a little bit ageism and the correlation of ageism to abuse. We're going to look at some of the risk factors and complexities around elder abuse and help us gain a little bit more knowledge on how to respond to a potential elder abuse situation and look at some of the services that are available to older adults who may be experiencing and are victims of elder abuse. I'd like to start, of course, by understanding first of all, the definition. And this is a definition that comes to us, if you can see here, from the World Health Organization. So that just gives us a moment to say, it's not just happening in Ontario. It's not happening just in British Columbia or Manitoba. This is happening around the world. As we know, when we mark next Thursday on June 15th, World Elder Abuse Awareness Day, the World Health Organization has given us the definition that elder abuse is a single or a repeated act or a lack of an appropriate action occurring within any relationship where there is an expectation of trust which causes harm or distress to an older person. And so what I like now is to sort of give us that visual. What does that mean when we're actually experiencing it? Or what could that look like and feel like to an older adult who is living in an abusive situation where their abuser is gaining control over all of their decisions, meaning the older adult has lost that trust, respect, and control. It's that imbalance of power, because abuse is the misuse of power. And so this visual sorts of just gives us an idea of what that may look like. And we can almost begin to feel sometimes what that must feel like to somebody living in that abusive situation. Around the world, we have looked at statistics showing us that 1 in 6 older adults from over 60 countries that the World Health Organization has done this study have experienced some form of elder abuse in their community. That's 1 in 6 from 60 countries around the world. In Canada, when our prevalence study was done in 2016, we spoke to just under 1 million seniors at that time. This study was done by the National Initiative Care for the Elderly, or NICE is the acronym, where at that time the prevalence of Canada showed us 8.2% of seniors had experienced one form or another of elder abuse, which at that time roughly translates to 1 in 10. But we know those numbers are very underreported. At the time in 2016, the study had showed us emotional abuse, followed at that time by financial, then physical, sexual, and neglect were at the highest prevalence study. If we fast forward where we are in 2023, as our senior population continues to grow every single day, we know there are so many barriers that don't allow our seniors to come forward to report abuse. And I always need to say, we are never shaming, we are never blaming. We are simply letting people know why the numbers we know are underreported. And that sadly, the problem is a much larger one. These are just a snapshot of some of the barriers that don't allow our seniors to report. And if anything, if we could zero in, of course, it is that family dynamic. When seniors are faced with abuse, and we're going to be speaking much more about that profile of who an abuser may be in a senior's life, it is sadly coming normally from within the family. And seniors will say to me, Mary, it's so hard to say or have my son or daughter get in trouble because I don't want to see them in trouble. They are still, of course, my family. I love them. I just want the abuse to stop. We also see where if seniors are dependent, living with their caregivers or family members who they do depend on, perhaps for physical or financial help, again, hard to come forward because the concern then becomes, what will happen to me? Where will I go? And who will help me? So this just gives us an understanding of why we know so many of the numbers are underreported. And the reality is, elder abuse impacts seniors residing in all of their home settings, be in community, where 93% of Canadian seniors reside is in their community, in their homes. Long-term care and retirement homes really only make up about 7% of where seniors reside. So as much as we do speak about that systemic abuse that happens in long-term care and in retirement homes, Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario works in community where we do really see that that is the the result of knowing 93% of residents of seniors live in their homes and want to remain in their homes. And as the world is getting older, every day we are all, as we say, one day older. And the population of the world will continue to increase as we are aging. More and more of us are looking at saying that every second that somebody is celebrating a 60th birthday around the world, we look at our population with our 2021 census results, that in the next 20 years, once again, we are going to see a massive shift in population change as the senior population will grow by another 68%. And I kind of had to giggle with my last group. They're like, wow, in 20 years, Mary, where will you be? And I kind of said, I'll be in that population, everybody. I will be there. I won't tell you on the lower high end of the 20 years, but I will be there. And that is the reality, that boom of us aging, we'll see that massive, again, influx of seniors in Canada. And to look at that, not only are we aging, but we're living longer. And so we're going to see by 2037, over 10 million Canadians who will be over 75 years old. So these are just showing us and showing our governments, yes, the time is now. We need to continue that infrastructure, prevention, safety, resources in all aspects for every Canadian as we're getting older. And of course, immediately for our seniors today, those services and resources must happen immediately. The population, the numbers are definitely there. We talk a lot about where people were saying, well, has elder abuse just happened because of COVID? Did the isolation, the loneliness, was this a result of COVID? No. Older adults have been suffering well before the pandemic and are sadly continuing to suffer, much as we're now coming out of this pandemic. Seniors have been dealing with emotional heartache, physical pain, financial losses caused by an abuser that they know and trust for decades. What the pandemic, I think, did for the time when we were focused on seeing that systemic abuse through long-term care homes continue to give us a little bit more media attention. And now, as you know, the media, as we know, is always looking for the next sort of news story, what's engaging and what's going to get viewership, we less and less hear and see about that systemic abuse, and less hearing about elder abuse, because it's no longer, sadly to say, that hot topic that the media, so crave to put in front of the cameras. But this is the work that we continue to work and face with every single day. COVID, if anything, also began to show us the ugliness of ageism. We saw so many hurtful and painful messaging during COVID because younger adults felt, well, doesn't affect me. I'm young, I'm strong, I'm healthy. Open up the restaurants, open everything up, sacrifice the weak. This is a disease that is not affecting me. There was so much hurtful messaging through social media, through the media, and even in day-to-day activities where older adults were felt shamed and felt afraid because of this hurtful ageist messaging that was happening and sadly continues to happen daily. The United Nations continues to work on their convention fighting ageism around the world. Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario was recently, for the first time ever, invited to be part of that Canadian coalition in New York on speaking with our delegation here in Canada on ageism, working with our federal minister for seniors and accessibility on the strategies and work that we need to do in Canada to combat these stereotypes on how we think, this prejudice on how we feel, and this discrimination on how we act towards others simply based on one's age. Another important date that, of course, we mark every year is October 1st, United Nations Day of the Older Person, where once again around the world, the UN addresses ageism of older adults around the world and the work we all need to do to combat ageism. Ageism has become that social norm to the extent where sometimes older adults feel they don't fit into society. They feel they're not part of that norm that society wants for us to generate, which is that constant youthful look and appearance, and that as we age, we no longer matter. Ageism can sadly also contribute to where that escalation of elder abuse can happen, where sometimes well-meaning family and friends, sometimes when they don't maybe get their way in terms of what they want an older adult to do, begin to push or, start to sort of want only their ideas to be heard and felt, and never asking the opinion of their older adult, perhaps mom or dad, meaning, mom, I don't think you need that house anymore. I think it's too big for you. It's time to sell. And when the older adult may not agree or may not want to sell, sadly, we can see where this escalation can begin to occur as the adult child begins to push their values, their thoughts in what they want to happen because they feel they know best, and saying, I know more because I'm younger and have more ideas, versus saying to the older adult, what is it you would like to do? How can I best support you so we can make sure you remain safe? And we continue to see that correlation of ageism and elder abuse happening in situations every day. When we look at older adults who could be considered at a higher risk group for being a victim of elder abuse, again, sadly, in 2023, still being a woman can put women at a higher rate of an abusive situation. We also see an escalation of our seniors from the LGBTQ2+ community, as well as seniors who themselves had experienced previous abuse as a child, a youth, or as an adult. Seniors who are at a higher risk, who may be suffering from dementia or a cognitive impairment, women with disabilities, or seniors living in a lower income poverty or homeless situation. Also, when we look at this, we can understand when we have mental health concerns such as depression, this can lead to seniors becoming more vulnerable to becoming victims of abuse. If they're socially isolated and not able to have communication or outreach with friends or family, if you're living with your caregiver or someone who themselves is suffering with addictions, or a deteriorating health situation where one partner has to care for another, and we have seen that caregiver burnout that can happen, that can escalate to an abusive situation for an older adult. And again, when we speak about the abuser, we are speaking about 90% of the time family. meaning this is the abuser, the person who sometimes may even come across as that most supportive family member, because they are the ones who want to gain that full control and access over the older adult's life. Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, we work with thousands of cases every year. And we always say, no matter the call or the case, no two situations are ever the same. But we see and continue to see where families, sometimes siblings, want to each have control over their parents' finances, decisions, and begin to sort of, fight amongst themselves and gain control over the older adults and not let the other sibling in to know what's happening. There is a case we're working with now, which is sadly exactly that, where one brother has moved in with their father and is now putting a restraining over his own brother, saying, we don't want you to come by. We don't want to see you. Dad doesn't want to see you. The other brother is saying the only reason is because my other brother wants that full control of dad's home, dad's assets, and he knows by forcing me out, he only wants to gain control because it comes down to that emotional and financial abuse. And these are where we see that escalation sadly continue to rise between family, sadly between siblings, or adult children themselves wanting control fully over their parents' decisions and assets. We see it happening where a friend or a neighbor can also sometimes say, well, how do I get involved in a senior's life and maybe perhaps look at where I can financially gain? Forbes magazine, which is one of the most prominent money magazines, of course, of all time, had done an article a few years back saying elder abuse, financial abuse is the crime of the 21st century. As we age and seniors hold funds and assets and property, they are seeing that escalation again around the world, where family, friends, and neighbors are looking at how do I gain that financial, assets taking away from a senior. And this is where now we know financial abuse is the most sadly common form of elder abuse that we're seeing every day. The abuser themselves, as we look at understanding what leads to an abuser to do this, they themselves may have experienced abuse as a child or a youth or an adult, having their own ageist attitudes and that sense of entitlement. Well, you don't need that house. You have so much money. You're not going to spend it all. And so this false sense of entitlement says to them, I deserve it. I need it. You owe me. They themselves may be suffering from depression or their own mental health issues, or are also socially isolated and not part of a community or a social network, or themselves dealing with addictions, lack of employment, where they then need to financially abuse a senior for their own financial needs and gains. Warning signs that we always want to look out for is when somebody wants to take over all the decision making without asking or getting consent from the older adult. If someone wants to begin to increasingly isolate a senior from seeing friends and family, as I had sort of shared with you what's happening with the two brothers, because that one brother does not want to allow the other brother in. And again, what are those reasons that he wants to socially isolate dad away from everyone? Abuse can escalate where abusers can begin to use threatening of violence or abandonment by saying, if you don't do as I say, no one's going to help you and I'm going to leave you alone. This is where that emotional abuse will always sadly be tied into any form of elder abuse. Disregarding a senior's privacy by not allowing them to see their mail or financial banking statements. So they really have no idea of what is happening because the abuser, again, it's about control and power. We've seen warning signs when we work with the amazing teams of EMS, fire, and police where they've been called into situations and they see locks on doors outside of a senior's room that an abuser has put there to not allow the senior to have access to leave their room. And we know when the handling of money is being completely controlled and dominated by an abuser, this is that power and control over financial abuse. And as we begin to look a bit now deeper into the forms of elder abuse, we're going to look at the financial, the emotional, the physical, the sexual, and neglect. And understanding that sadly, with elder abuse, multiple forms of elder abuse can occur at once. We'll always know that with any form of elder abuse, there will always be a component, sadly, of the emotional abuse that is happening to an older adult. Financial abuse is and continues to be the most common form of elder abuse that is happening to seniors around the world. Financial abuse is defined as the improper conduct that can be done with or without the informed consent of the older adult. What that, of course, does is results in a monetary or personal gain to the abuser and a monetary or personal loss to the older adult. Financial abuse can happen with powers of attorneys where someone has mismanaged and used that power of attorney for property, for financial gain for themselves. A few years ago, we were very shocked when one of the most horrific financial abuse stories, about, I would say, going back close to 15 years ago, finally was getting the media attention. And it happened in the area of Markham, Ontario. So just about 45 minutes out of Toronto, here in Ontario. Markham is a nice suburb where a story had come to light, and a senior by the name of Rose had sold her home and decided, as her husband had passed away, the home was becoming too much for her. And she said to her children, she had 3 children, I want to now live that second chapter of my life and move into a retirement community. She had appointed her eldest son as her power of attorney and her other 2 children as her power of attorney for personal care. And, she had a nice nest egg saved up and from the sale of her home of well over $600,000. Moved into a lovely retirement home and was really thriving. She made new friends and was really getting involved in her community. 6 months after she had moved in, the director of care came to see her and said, Rose, unfortunately, I'm so sorry to come to you, but your last month's rent didn't go through. And we're so embarrassed. I'm so sorry, because of course everyone loved Rose and her bills were always paid. And Rose said, oh, no goodness, there must be a mistake. My son handles, all my finances. I'll call him. Everything I'm sure will work out. And Rose was so embarrassed. Rose called her son and he said, oh, Mom, they probably don't know how to manage their books. Everything is paid for. 3 months later, the director of care came again to see Rose and said, Rose, I am so sorry. It's been 3 months. We've tried calling your son. The rent isn't being paid. Rose, if we don't receive the rent, unfortunately, we're going to have to evict you because the rent needs to be paid. Well, you can imagine Rose was horrified. She quickly called her son. There was no answer. She called her other two children, who were just as horrified and shocked, saying, well, that can't be, Mom. You have the money. Don't worry, we're going to call him. They called their brother. There was no answer. Sadly, Rose was evicted from the retirement home, and she was moved into a long-term care home. Her other two children began to investigate what was going on. When they went to the bank with their mom, the current balance of Rose's account was $9.18. Her son, her eldest son, had sadly drained that account of over $600,000 in the period of a few months and was now away overseas and unable to be contacted. Her other two children began a forensic investigation, contacted the police, contacted the media to bring this story to light of what can happen within their own family, to understand what this looks like when financial abuse happens to the mom that they love so, so much, but sadly their brother was abusing her financially. Rose had given a video testimony on exactly what she remembered and what had happened, but sadly passed away before this did go to the courts. It was brought before the court, and her son testified and said, my mom wanted me to have the money. This is why she made me POA. She wanted me to enjoy it. He was convicted of financial fraud, but sadly had said he had spent the money and didn't have any money to pay back. And we share this story with everyone just to sort of help you feel that context of what that can look like and feel like when an older adult puts that trust and that love in giving power of attorney to someone, of course, like her own son, and yet that is misused to have that monetary gain, which broke that family down into complete and utter, sadly, chaos, where to this day the siblings obviously don't speak to one another, and they blame their brother for the demise of what had happened to their mom. It left her penniless and almost homeless if it wasn't for the other two children to ensure they could make sure mom was going to receive still care through long-term care. It is one of the most devastating and yet continues to be a story we hear every day when financial abuse happens to seniors. We also know about frauds and scams, as this continues to be another form of financial abuse where seniors are targeted by strangers, but again, using a fraud or a scam, targeting a senior to gain financial means from them. Emotional abuse, again, as we know, is always tied in, because we will either see that verbal or nonverbal action that is there to lessen the sense of identity and dignity of an older adult. Verbal abuse is used with that power imbalance because the abuser wants to take over all control and decision making over the older adult's choices. It can also lead to social isolation, where they no longer want to even allow a senior to have access to a telephone or to have access to technology so they can connect with family or friends or agencies. Emotional abuse can be extremely painful when there's name calling, ridiculing, insulting, or even bullying an older adult. If you don't do as I say, you know what's going to happen. Sometimes some of the most powerful words that are meant to frighten and intimidate an older adult. Neglect we see when that basic failure to provide necessities, the care and assistance that's required for the health and safety of an older adult, that can jeopardize their living conditions, from having a lock on a door, not having access, again, sometimes to necessities like food or water for 8, 12 hours a day. Neglect can also be leaving a senior in unsafe conditions within their own home for hours and hours every day. We see neglect happen where there are times when, yes, seniors may need to look at that next step in life, and that may be a retirement or a long-term care home, but the abuser wants to keep them in their home because for them, that also means free living accommodations for them. So it can happen, sadly, on that way as well, where neglect is used to keep a senior in an unsafe condition. Neglect is also not allowing a senior access to medical services or even social or community services that they need to require to be part of reducing that social isolation. Physical abuse we can understand as not only an act of violence or rough handling, which sadly can result in a physical injury. Physical abuse is also withholding medications or over-medicating in older adults. When working with older adults, we always want to understand and delicately speak about what that physical abuse may look like and feel like, if there's been any unexplained bruising or even unexplained broken eyeglasses or any of their mobility aids that have been either taken away from them or are not in working condition. And again, understanding that that is also the over or under medicating of medications to an older adult. Sexual abuse can happen at any time within any relationship. I always work with my seniors groups, and we always talk about no means no, no matter what, at any age and at any relationship we're in. Non-consensual sexual contact of any kind with an older adult, or sexual contact with any person incapable of giving consent, is considered sexual assault. Meaning, if I don't have the capacity to know the difference of what I want because I'm unable to have that cognitive capacity, that automatically means no. And sexual assault, again, is one of the most underreported forms of elder abuse, but sadly that we know continues to happen to older adults in community settings, as well as through long-term care and retirement homes. When we look at the Criminal Code of Canada, we understand currently that elder abuse itself is not a chargeable offense, meaning we don't have an elder abuse code that we can charge under. So what we're looking at right now is where the police can still charge under all these criminal codes in Canada, from physical, sexual, emotional, verbal, financial, and neglect. As we continue to advocate and make changes with our lawmakers across Canada, we know by making elder abuse a criminal code onto itself, that we will be able to bring more abusers to justice by enforcing that elder abuse will not be tolerated, will not be allowed to happen in this country, and that it is a chargeable offense. Even though I know we can charge under the other codes that we have, we want elder abuse to be its own standalone Criminal Code of Canada offense for the police to be able to make those charges. Currently in Ontario for reporting, we currently only have 2 settings where we do have that mandatory reporting. So remember back about 20 slides ago, we talked about that 93% of our seniors live in community, but yet we don't have a mandatory reporting system for community, much as we do for children who are at risk for violence or abuse. In Ontario, mandatory reporting happens through our long-term care homes and through our retirement homes. So those are the 2 settings currently where if you see or suspect abuse, we are mandated to report those into the long-term care action line or in a retirement home through the Retirement Home Regulatory Authority. In Toronto, in the GTA area here in Ontario, we are working with the University of Toronto and a program that is going to be launching within the next few months, piloting a community-based intervention structure for elder abuse. This is being spearheaded by Dr. David Burns out of the University of Toronto, a professor and PhD in sociology. And this program will be launching where they are looking at having exactly those intervention teams who can respond in community to elder abuse cases. So a lot of work continues to happen as we advocate for more in-community reporting and intervention teams to be able to be out and supporting, as we say, boots on the ground, helping seniors in community for at-risk elder abuse cases. Because we have to understand when seniors do come forward to report, first and foremost, we always must respect everybody's personal values, everybody's priorities, their goals, their choice of lifestyle, and to understand that everybody has the right to recognize that they can make their own decisions. I've worked with thousands of seniors, and yes, as they disclose to me, they may not always want to report into police, but what they want to do is get help for themselves and again, help for their abuser so we can have the abuse no longer affecting their lives. There are times when seniors may continue and they live in these situations, but again, these are choices that as much as we want to make our changes and offer the best advice, we have to understand that everyone has that right to make their choices of what they want, and that we have to be there to respect their confidentiality and their privacy. And so working with elder abuse, as we always say, it takes time. It's not always that one and done conversation, of course. It takes a lot for a senior to come forward, and it takes time to build that rapport and trust, and always to let them know we are there to respect their confidentiality and work with them, to work for them, never to shame or to blame, but to offer that support and guidance always. We work with stakeholders, again, to ensure when training on how to speak to an older adult when they do disclose. And working with our policing partners is to ensure that a senior is in a location where they feel safe and comfortable. Of course, never to have that senior have to need to disclose or speak in front of a potential abuser, because of course they're not going to be able to speak comfortably. Always let them know that we're starting from a place of safety for them, and that this is an open door conversation to keep future conversations to continue. It takes time to build that rapport, and for our older adults to know we will be there for as long as it takes to ensure they feel safe and that they have someone they can talk to and who's there to listen to them and build upon that. Some of the most simplest things we can say in supporting an older adult is, how can I help? I always say those are some of the most 4 powerful words in the English language. How can I help? And they may say, I just need you to be there to listen. That's all I need right now. Always asking, what is it you'd like to share with me? And when the time is appropriate, can I talk to you about some options and resources to let you know what may be available to further help you? And these are, as we say, some of those guiding principles we want to be there to ensure we're supporting older adults through an elder abuse situation. And again, when working with our social workers, our geriatricians, our healthcare staff, and many of the amazing volunteers who work with older adults every single day, we always want to keep those open-ended questions that they're able to feel comfortable to ask to ensure that conversation and disclosure can happen when an older adult feels safe to come forward. Preventing elder abuse is truly a shared responsibility. It's for all of us to every day, no matter where we are in our lives, at what age or what stage, to always remain active and as connected as we can. And that circle can be as big or as small as you want it to be. But connection and activity are part of the key goals we all need to maintain every day to combat abuse. To have that regular contact with a friend or multiple friends and family and support networks that we know and we trust. Taking part in community events that we enjoy, webinars that we enjoy attending, because that sense of community will keep us and reduce social isolation. As simple as this may sound, making sure we always have access to our own phone. May that be our home phone or a cell phone, that is something we have access to anytime we need it. Knowing and taking care of our own healthcare decisions. And if we decide to set up a power of attorney for personal care, that we are choosing an attorney who we trust that will make the best decisions should we be unable to make those decisions if we become cognitively impaired to do so. And asking for help when we need it, knowing that asking for help is not a sign of weakness, it's a sign of strength. Because if something doesn't feel right, to know there are resources and services that we can reach out to talk to someone, to trust that we can build that rapport. Our website at Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, we hope continues to offer wonderful information, resources, and facts and tip sheets on a variety of topics to help members in our community when looking for those resources. Everything from safety planning to knowing your legal rights and looking at what financial abuse constitutes and how to best always protect ourselves. So again, all these tools, tip sheets, fact sheets, webinars that we host, everything is available anytime, day or night, online at www.eapon.ca. So I do hope you come visit our site if looking for any great information and resources. But for those of you in Ontario or really anywhere in Canada, Our senior safety line is another resource that is set up through the Assaulted Women's Helpline here in Ontario. And the safety line is again 24/7, or 365 days a year, where counselors are there to listen, offer guidance and resources, not only for seniors, but for family members or loved ones who are concerned about the health and well-being of a senior. So the safety line again is at 1-866-299-1011. It is a non-emergency line. Of course, if there is an emergency, as we always say, please contact 911. The safety line, though, is there as the counselors are there to offer that support and guidance. And just as we round out and close, there's a short video I'd like to share with everyone. Oh, sorry, I always hit the button too soon. My apologies, sorry. I just want to make sure that sound is working, and then I'll just make sure I'm sharing the sound. A short video with Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario, brought to us by Justice Canada, for the financial support that we do to continue to bring out some really informative short messaging on elder abuse and ageism. So I'm just going to start that back from the beginning.
Makes a difference to your future. Some makes a difference.
There we go.
How you treat older adults today makes a difference to your future. Someday it will be you. Your words and your actions have an impact every time. Every time. Be wise in your choices. Be thoughtful in your actions. Treat people today how in the future you will want to be treated. Imagine yourself as much older than you are now, but you want to be treated like this? Think about it. Chances are the future you will want to be respected for your life experience, to have people who love you, to feel like you belong and have purpose, to feel like your life matters. And you are probably not alone. Yet in Canada, 63% of seniors say they have been treated unfairly or differently because of their age. Discrimination based on age is a violation of human rights. It's called ageism, and it's a big problem. We all deserve to be treated with dignity and respect, no matter what your age. Learn more about seniors' rights. Visit Elder Abuse Prevention Ontario. EAPO is partnering with provincial and national organizations to help address ageism and prevent abuse, because working together across the country is the way forward.
And again, thanking the financial support from the Department of Justice of Canada as we continue to bring out messaging across our country, working with the Canadian Network for the Prevention of Elder Abuse. And again, the amazing work that comes out of the Western University here in in London, Ontario, partnering with the Centre for Research and Education on Violence Against Women and Children. And so, as we always said, those partnerships are so key as we work together to combat elder abuse across Ontario and across Canada. Because every person, no matter their age, no matter their background, everyone deserves to be treated with kindness and dignity and respect every single day. Thank you so much, everyone. I'm just going to leave this up for a second. This is my information. My cell number is there where you can reach out to me directly at 647-354-8854, as well as our head office, 416-916-6728. We also have our dedicated consultants working with elder abuse cases. You can phone the office, leave a message, and even specify a time where it's good to call back. And our consultants can make sure it's a safe time to call back to speak to you confidentially. All calls are not recorded. Everything is free of charge. Now, again, we're not 24/7, but again, you can always call us anytime and leave that message as well if you aren't able to reach the senior safety line. And we are there to work with you and of course, be there to listen. My email is mshkoury@eapon.ca. Again, our website at eapon.ca, where all the information, of course, on our website is there. And please, I hope you can join us next Thursday for our webinar as we mark World Elder Abuse Awareness Day. Thank you so much. I look forward, we can open up for some time for Q&A and discussion. So I will stop sharing. So I'll hopefully be able to see some lovely faces. There we go. Oh, it's nice to see smiling faces. So I enjoy this part. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you so much, Mary. That was wonderful. And as you can see in our feedback in our chat, there's a lot of applause and appreciation for your presentations. That was excellent. Thank you so much. It was a great, wonderful preview into what you do and the specifics of what type of elder abuse exists. And so we appreciate that so much. Thank you for your insight, your wisdom, and your experience. Is very important to hear all of that. So thank you. We will open up now the chat, and anyone who wants to ask a question, if there's a specific matter issue that's related to you or someone you know that you want to ask, because you have access now to speak to our speaker. Thank you. Chris, may you please unmute yourself? Yes, your hand is up.
My name is Costas.
Costas, yes, go ahead, Costas.
I'm a person that is 67 years old, a senior. I'm retired, and I'm suffering from extreme and major depression. And the last 2 days, it was extremely difficult for me. I was not eating right, and I was sleeping all day and getting up early in the mornings and getting tired again and going back to sleep. I couldn't do anything. I couldn't even watch TV. I was missing out on my medications, and I was all alone in the house because my sister went out with her dogs to the country. I was scared. I was afraid of the smog to go out, and I was concerned for my sister because the smog might affect my sister and the dogs where they were. And I was kind of concerned. I called different people, including as well as Compassion Community Care, to talk to Kathy. All she did was pray for me, which was good. And she was getting in touch with the lady that she referred me to, Anne Marie, to find me another a facility for me to get help and support, because that facility wasn't able to respond properly. I sent a submission referral, and they never replied to it. And also, when I was younger, I was abused lots of times, financially as well as physically, from my parents because of corporal punishment for me and my sister. I was physically abused from my kids, other kids, as well as teachers at school and principal, and also I was emotionally abused by two ladies that I lived with during the time when I was rooming and boarding under their roof. They were financially abusing me. They took control over my finances. They didn't let me spend my money the way I wanted to. And also they didn't let me support the charities and ministries that I wanted to. And they were taking control of my finances, and my family didn't do much about it. They didn't try to get me out of that situation very much. And that's all I can say at this time.
Thank you for your feedback, Costas. And definitely we'll be in touch again, because I followed up with you recently about this too. So thank you. Mary, is there alternative finds, like, did you find there's ways that you refer, for example, that are faster in response, that like for someone who may have immediate mental health needs, support, for example, questions? Yes.
And that's such an excellent question. And again, working with the province with home and community care support services, it's we do, of course, when a patient is referred through home and community care, if there, of course, is an escalation needed. I know they are doing their best, and that's, of course, our provincial here in Ontario services for home care, to link us through with for PSWs, social workers, adult day programs, and of course, they have a geriatric mental health support center where we're working with them. So when that referral comes through, of course, we're asking if, the physician is referring, or if the report is the referral's coming from home or community, to please indicate that it is an escalated situation that needs immediate attention, because again, they're dealing with thousands of referrals a day as well. But I never want to sound like a broken record and say we're lacking resources, and we know this, and this is happening sadly in every sector right now in our province. So we are behind the eight ball, so to speak. We need more resources in our healthcare system. And I know I'm speaking to the choir here. We all know this, we all understand this, and we continue to advocate as we need to bring more people to our country to work and bring us that healthcare solution that we need. And I know governments are opening those borders up and those visas up, because you're right, we need more support and dedicated, passionate individuals to come and work in our beautiful country. So if you know someone, bring them over, let's recruit them, because the resources have to be there for us to support our population as we speak. So thank you first, Costas, for sharing that. I know it's not always easy to share your journey. Thank you for being so vulnerable and open to share. And I know that resonated, I'm sure, with everyone listening, and know that EAPO, as I know with Compassionate Community Care, I know we're all part of that story as we push to work together for more and more resources. So thank you so, so much.
Before I go, the other thing I forgot to mention is I almost went into a retirement home, but I had to stop it at the last moment because the staff there didn't support me with my depression and my anxiety and schizophrenia and mental illness, and they didn't want the doctor there to the house doctor at the residence to adjust my medication for depression and anxiety. So I said, that's it. I'm not going anymore to retirement homes, because that's what they are doing there. And the other issue is that I'm afraid also to go into hospitals and long-term facilities and nursing homes, because I know they euthanize people now, and May is coming up, and Bill C7, which Trudeau unfortunately passed in the House of Commons and made it law now for euthanasia to be legalized, and for adults who are elderly and mentally ill, and also who are chronically ill as well.
So that's a concern. I understand where you're coming from, Costas. There is a lot of people who, when it comes to the changes in the laws and things, that is something that is a weight for a lot of people, because it is forthcoming potentially. But at the time now, at present, we are seeing that, there's explicit consent that needs to happen. And if there's abuses in that regard, then we need to obviously have advocacy, proper channels of reporting and things like that need to happen. So in terms of your nursing home question or relation of that, we definitely can see, and maybe with Mary's help, if there are some safe places that we could refer you to that are nearby that would happen to, obviously appreciate your concern, but also manage your care better. And that could facilitate you, that you feel comfortable, that you would be well accepted and regarded and valued, and especially your considerations would be met. So let's have a continuing conversation with Mary, perhaps offline, and that way we can spearhead this effort around you to make sure we take care of those issues. Is that all right, Costas? Perfect. All right. Is there anyone else who has a question? We have a few entering in. So we've just opened up the floor for questions for those of you who have been admitted into the room. And I know a few have left. So we can conclude. I have a short, brief overview at the end that I'd love to share with you all. If there's no more questions, I'm just going to flip over to our screen here and welcome you to just view my screen for a quick moment and just conclude with a few upcoming events that we do have and we're hosting. So I do want to encourage you to join us for that. And if you can see my slide, I'm just going to pop that over here, play from that slide. Okay, there we go. So Mary, thank you for that again. Wonderful overview. And again, I left Mary's contact up for you all to see. In terms of elder abuse, this concludes our series on elder abuse prevention for this year. And we've had 3 wonderful sessions, and they are also available on record, and there are links available, the other 2 that were held, and Mary's will be included in those. We do have a great resource here, which is on elder abuse. We created this great handout, and so we encourage you to use that. If you need it, feel free to let us know. We can email it to you. Today's recording will be available. In addition to that, we had 2 previous sessions. One was called Elder Abuse in the Modern Family, What You Need to Look Out For. That was with a lawyer and constitutional experience health human rights lawyer named Hugh Scher. That's available online as well. And we had 2 nurses join us before that for our first session, which was in May as well, with both nurses. They shared in great detail about what actually happens on, as you say, Mary, on the ground level, on the boots on grounds level with nurses, nursing care, personal support staff, and how those issues relate throughout COVID and just before COVID as well. What is the solution ultimately? And this is something where I find is the best point of our presentation and involvement, which is ultimately that it takes it back to you, the community, and you as the individual. And in this guide to loneliness, Dr. Kevin Vast, who's a psychologist, he shared this in his volume where he talks that in order to actually be awakened to what's happening around us, in order to be aware of what each other's needs are, including the need for community and interpersonal connections, we must ask ourselves what we can do to help and give hope to stem the tide of loneliness. And one of the ways is to raise and grow an awareness of our lonely community members, to reach out to them, to lighten their load, and to ultimately be in communication and contact. This is a picture of my youngest son. His name is Tobias. He's a year, and he and I have just recently accompanied our kids, and we go and we frequent a care home, which is a seniors residence nearby. And what's really important is that we need to encourage people to do these types of things. And no matter if you're busy or if you're a mom like myself of 4 young children, you can do it. You can afford the time. So there's so many opportunities. And also we want to share with you this educational opportunity too. For those of you who have not joined us, you can gain the confidence to do this work, to visit with others, to journey with those who are maybe suffering, socially isolated, sick, or dying, or just simply to be there to renew their hope and purpose in life. And why, this is so important is we've seen this in the studies that sometimes elderly persons who go into the community, they go out to socialize, in the stores, because that may just be the only contact they have with someone, and that might be you. So we want to empower you to empower others. And so we host these, they're called Being With My Story visiting sessions, in which we provide you with an actual book, a resource we printed. They're general questions you can ask anyone. Mary could ask her parents if she wanted, and they can interview those members in their community and their families about their life, about their history, about their experiences and their love and their, all of the memories they have in their life. And it becomes a beautiful opportunity to share those memories and those stories. And this workshop happens to be 2 sessions. Our next one coming up is on June 20th and 21st from 7 to 9 p.m. It's virtual. It's on Zoom like this. So you can do it like you did today. And it would be wonderful to see you to facilitate that. Another opportunity that we have here is to do our patient advocacy training. And this is an extension of our advocacy program, which we share a little bit about in our Being With training. And what this means is it helps you journey with people who need an advocate. You're not necessarily a healthcare professional, but you're learning the tools and how to speak and converse with people who may be medical professionals, and that person or patient may not be comfortable addressing certain issues. So you can just be there as an added ear, a person to listen, to take notes for them, to encourage them to share what they need and what they need to in order to live good lives and to get the care they deserve. So that's also available. Finally, I'm just going to share this too, is that we have a session coming up. It's in our first overnight event that we're hosting. It's a beautiful retreat-like center. It's in Madoc, Ontario, just outside of, I believe, Kingston. And it is a 2-day event. It's being hosted by a group and a very important work that's happening there. It's called St. Mary's Refuge. And we were privy to them earlier in the year when we did a talk with them. And they're going to support people who want to train in both seminars in the same time frame. And you'll be able to be there. They have campgrounds and cabins. There's a wonderful opportunity to just take a few days off and be in the wilderness and in nature, and you'll be able to know how to support seniors, especially vulnerable people in your community. So, and there is a certificate that is available upon completion for you as well. And for more events, all of our events are listed online at beingwith.org under the events tab. Feel free to check that out. And if you have, oops, sorry, I'm just going to pop over here. This is a wonderful thing. I just wanted to share this. As you can see, you are the difference, each of and every one of you who partake in these events to visit with others, be volunteers, active members in your community. You make a difference for everyone. And the only way you can find ultimately cases of elder abuse that arise is by being active members in the community. So you're partaking in the solution now just by being involved with others. And this is a great snapshot of a few ladies that are involved in their community. They're a chapter of women, and they collected their stories within the CWL group, and we published them for them. And actually, because we're based out of London, we compiled all these stories, 100 years of this group and organization, CWL, and you can join that and you can facilitate the same idea for your own communities. If you're part of a group, that's great. You can do and create a legacy piece for your own group as well, if they were involved with your group. And these copies in this volume is available. So if you'd like to get a copy, by all means, let us know. We'll share it with you. And it's also available online. And there's stunning testimonies of women, of their struggles, their perseverance, their hope, and ultimately, how they push through life, regardless of situations. Things like, there was times of hunger, there was times of the actual depression, wars, and even famine, and what they went through and how they were able to be able to go through that and survive. So we definitely encourage you to join us and help and be a visitor, be a volunteer. If you need actual assistance, feel free to reach out to us. Every case is different. Every person is different. So we don't take a one person, one approach to each person. It's very catered to each person. So we make referrals to great people in the community as well, professionals in the natural health sciences, in the traditional medicine routes, people who may perhaps need mental health support or even legal support and counsels. Okay, so that is available to you as well. And we appreciate your support. So for all of you that know that you want to support us as well, please, by all means, reach out to us. We have a dedicated line. We can assist you with anything, but if you'd like to, feel free to also partake in our work and future endeavors. You can donate if you'd like to as well. We have free materials online and printed resources, and we can issue tax receipts for any donations. So please definitely let us know if you'd like to support us in any way. So I leave this on the screen. If there's any questions, by all means, let us know. And please, again, thank you so much to Mary for your time today with us. And we look forward to keeping in touch with you and being in contact. So thank you all.
Thank you so much. Thank you again, everybody.
Likewise. Thank you so much.